Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
So I'm here with Stacy Chapin, and she's the author of The Boy Who Wore Blue. And we're just absolutely thrilled to have this book on Make Mementos. So I don't know if you could start out with telling us a little bit about the book and why you decided to write it.
Um, well, I mean, you have to know the story of, our boy who was a triplet. And his triplet color was blue. And then, of course, tragedy struck our family. And my best friend sent me this news release following November. And and it was about an author that had been given the rights to tell the story, and it was very, it was an interesting situation to be in, that just some random stranger could tell the story of our kid. So I felt compelled kind of overnight to write a cute story, and it wound up that the best version of it was a children's story. So I mean, Ethan was 20, but the story itself does not mention Ethan by name. It's not a sad story. Ethan was this great kid who has touched so many lives in 20 years, and that's really the moral of the story that I wrote, is just be kind. I mean, we had stories of him, like kids that we didn't know would come up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, I was in some class with Ethan, and he was, like, just one of the kindest kids to me, and he made me feel like I belong." And so it's cute. It's just a story about being kind and living your best life and being a good sibling to your, brother and sister. And it turned out, I mean, it just turned it just turned into something kind of amazing. So it's been fun. It's been a good I was it's a wonderful kind of reminder that, like a memoir, like a thing to have on your coffee table, that's just like, oh my gosh, we have this great memory of Ethan and all of these things that we love. And I can, there's actually, we used real pictures of they're all based on real photos of our things that we've done with our family. And so I don't know, it just turned out cute. And if you don't know him, it's just a moral of a living your best life. Be like the kid who wore blue, and be kind and inclusive, and
So you mentioned that the title is based on his color. So you had triplets and they each had
yes,
their own color. You want to tell a little bit
yes,
about that, or?
yes. um Well, they're fraternal, so they don't look alike. And obviously, there's a girl in the mix, but you just wind up right at the beginning needing to color coordinate everything so that, one, like when they're tiny little preemie babies, I think Ethan ate a little bit more than, Hunter. And so you just wound up kind of color coordinating everything. And then they would also, like, have their own clothes. It just wound up, when you went to buy something, you bought a blue one and a green one. I mean, Hunter's color was green, and Maisie, of course, was pink. But it's just kind of, it just happens. I suppose if you're, a family of multiples, you kind of understand that you just, I don't know, you just color cord it just happens kind of naturally, because you have to kind of color coordinate everything. And then, of course, since this all happened, blue has just become,
Mhm.
you know, a thing, I guess, for lack of a better, I don't know. It's I don't know. He was a great kid. So it's tricky in itself, but
Mhm. So one thing I noticed in the book is the depiction of like the sibling relationship. And what was
mhm,
that like, growing up or having triplets? And I'm sure the beginning days were really, really hectic, but that must have been
insane.
really neat to see them like all go through the same phases together. It's like a unique experience when you have triplets.
Yes. Yes, the beginning was crazy. It was like a factory a little bit. You just fed, changed, slept, for but then they became these little tiny people, and they always, I mean, I can genuinely say the three of them got along very well. They kind of just ran as a bunch. They were in the same class together all through school. Sorry, there's a lawnmower going up the path. Um, they spent all their years together in school. they played different sports. Obviously Maisie kind of took us one direction. The boys kind of, they typically played on the same teams, and they just had a great dynamic. They were kind to each other. I mean, obviously there was some typical sibling things, but for the most part, they were great. They got along well. Ethan was definitely both Maisie and Hunter's kind of number one person. So, I mean, it's been tricky for them, but it's good. The dynamic has always been good. I mean, it was just, we didn't know any different, right? I mean, you just don't know what you're up against, so you just have to do it. I mean, I'm sorry about that lawnmower. I don't know if you want to.
I can't hear it, so.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Oh, okay. It's really loud, actually, but sorry. No, it's good. You just, people are like, oh, I don't know how you do it, but you just do it because you have to. I mean, you just, I don't know. I always tell people I wouldn't change it for the world, but I also wouldn't recommend it. I mean, that you have to have kind of an extra set of hands. So, but I mean, oh my gosh, we had the best life. I mean, we still do, but it was wonderful having all three of them. Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but what is the message that you hope kids will get from reading this book?
Just be kind. I mean, but be inclusive and let everybody, Ethan was one of those kids at recess. He'd be like, everybody's going to the playground to play on the soccer field. I mean, he just made sure everybody was included. And I can honestly say, I don't know that we knew the extent of that until after he was gone and people started telling the stories.
Wow.
I mean, right down to Conway School, where they went like K-8, was, relatively small. And so, you could get a lot of the kids onto the playground or onto the soccer field for a game at recess. But like I said, I don't know that we understood the extent of his inclusivity, if you will, until people started telling the stories of like, he made sure that I was included, or it's been profound, to be honest with you. But honestly, the moral is just to be kind and live your best life. Right. I mean, I don't know that young children specifically know that, but as adults, when you read that piece of it, it's definitely, just be kind to everybody and inclusive and honestly live your best life. That's our moral now with Maisie and Hunter. You have to move forward and put your best foot forward and, live your best life. It's what Ethan would want for all of us. Honestly, we're lucky to have him for 20 years. He was an amazing kid. So it's easy to speak on his behalf. Yeah. Because he just was that, it was easy to write this story about the boy who wore blue. He was just, magnanimous. It's kind of a big, he had a magnanimous personality. He lit up every single room that he walked into. And I think you'll find, we have found also talking to a lot of his friends, they say that, right? Even in the fraternity, they're like, man, that guy would walk in the room and it just changed the whole energy. So, I mean, it's just that. It's just living your, best life and being kind and warm and put a smile on your face. If you put a smile on your face, it puts a smile on everybody else's face.
Yeah, that's like such a blessing for you guys to keep hearing those stories on and on. Like I
literally got a card in the mail yesterday from friends from Mount Vernon, and she was the manager of the basketball team, and it was her mom who said, they wound up at our house for breakfast one morning after a Saturday basketball practice. All three of the kids, because Maisie was also a manager for the boys basketball team. And she goes, my younger children still to this day, and I think forever, will always talk about that breakfast that morning because he was so funny. I mean, we were eating pancakes and it was funny. I don't know. When it was just, she goes, I've, waited a long time to tell you. I just needed to tell you the story. And but it was just exactly that. He came into our home and lit the whole place up.
So I've noticed on your Ethan Smiles Instagram, you get the opportunity to kind of share some of those stories. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the foundation and, what that's all about and what you're hoping for the future.
The foundation came about, I remember somebody early on saying to me very early, just after this happened, and they were like, you're going to need a foundation. And I remember so we started selling these tulip bulbs, which we've sold 125,000 of them. They're called Ethan Smile. It's a yellow and white mix. And that grew into then selling fresh tulips. And it just became this thing. We have friends who've created now merchandise. We've sold glassy babies. I mean, there's so many people who have wanted to do something for us. And it has turned out, I think, to be kind of a monetary, I mean, when there's nothing else to do, I think people want to make a donation. So it just, we started, and then it grew, and then we just woke up one day and we were like, oh my gosh, we need a foundation. and then you have to talk about what you want to do with the money in your foundation. And so, we're just going to scholarship as many kids as we can. Primarily Skagit County kids, which is where our kids went to school. And then, just any kid who wants to just go and pursue their dreams. We're hoping to be able to scholarship as many kids as possible. So we're off to a pretty good start. I mean, we're 7 months into it, and into the foundation piece of it. So yeah, it's a great thing to do, to be able to scholarship a kid in Ethan's name.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. So.
Yeah. So when you were talking about the tulips, it reminded me of one of the pages of the book where the kids are in the tulip field. So the illustrations overall are just amazing. They're so vibrant. How did you connect with your illustrator? And then you said she used like images from your family photos, or how did that come about?
Okay, so that's kind of a funny story. So I wrote, I woke up compelled to tell this story. I wrote it literally overnight. People have asked me how I came to tell this story, and all I can say is it's more like a country artist probably who goes through a breakup and then writes their greatest hit. I mean, I think that's kind of how it came about. I literally just sat down and was like, I have this story to tell. It turned into this, kind of rhyming story. It's very cute. And so I sent it to my friend who helped me self-publish it. She owned a little boutique publishing company. She's like, yes, this is how I can help you. This is what we're going to do. She goes, but you need an illustrator. So I'm like, well, how do I do that? She goes, well, just start looking for it. So I literally drove myself to Target, like every other mom. And I started looking through the children's section and the book illustrators that I liked. And I wrote down their names, and then I went home and I got on Amazon and I was looking at children's books, and her name just kept popping up. And I would take their name, and then I would look at their Instagram page to look at some of their other things that they've created. And it was the first one we reached out to. We have a media consultant person who helps us with the barrage of media that we've had to handle. And she sent kind of I have a client who's written a book. Sorry. Can you hear that?
No, I can't.
You can?
No, it sounds fun.
Gosh, good. Okay. My gosh. She was just like, okay, so we used our media consultant. She kind of sent this message to her. I have a client who has written a book and we need an illustrator. And so she said, yeah, I'm interested. And when she knew the story. She's from back east. I've never actually met her personally, but she knew the story, and she's like, I would be honored to do it. She's a professional. I mean, the worlds collided, to be honest. And she was amazing. And so we used WhatsApp. And I just uploaded the photos that I, in my mind, and, I knew from, having them for years and years, kind of what picture in my mind went with what, little verse.
Welcome to Make Mementos, where we connect families through the power of storytelling for generations to come. Narrate your own copy of The Boy in Blue by Stacy Chapin on makemementos.com. Now let's get back to the video.
The tulip picture is actually from a real photo that was taken of the kids out working in the tulip fields. And in the real photo, Maisie's arms are up, and that's, kind of how we did that piece of it. But like in the picture where they're running down to the school bus, for example, like the mailboxes, originally it had this whole string of mailboxes. I'm like, no, it has, I mean, it's very specific. Some of it is very specific too. real life, but based on all of our family photos. Yeah, it's cool. So the very first picture she sent me of Ethan, it was shocking to see how similar he looked. It's not a photo that's in the book, but she, took a story and then, kind of, drew an illustration, and Jim and I were just like, oh man, that's amazing. So we strategically took his picture off the front of the, we didn't think that people, if it's laying out, it's a little bit of a, it's one thing to kind of look at his photo inside of the book. But like this looks so much like him. And this is a real photo in real life that we have that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It was strategic so that you kind of wanted to know who the boy in blue was. So you have to open up the book and, figure it out. So yeah, it's cute.
Love it. Yeah, they really, some children's books, the illustrations are just, they go with the story, but I just noticed that they really, really capture the words, and they like make everything jump off the page. They're really beautiful.
Right. And in all honesty, the whole thing is a biography. I mean, the whole thing is true. The red Jeep is actually his Jeep in real life that he had, the boat. This is a picture of kind of a picture of our house. This one here.
Yeah.
On the golf course. I mean, all of it is really kind of true. So and I love that about it too.
Yeah. Well, one thing I took away as a mom, like I have young kids and I have kids that are approaching the teenage years. And so I loved how you captured like the beauty and the joy of like every little phase. So I don't know if you have any advice for moms of like little ones that are just kind of getting the book, and time goes fast. It does. But there's beauty in each phase. Something along that line. Yeah.
I don't know. I truly believe there's this saying, how does it go? The days are long, but the years are short. That is so true. I can remember thinking to myself, dear, if we get through today, or like when I would pass this school, when the kids were like 3, and it was like on the reader board for the school, it said Kinder Roundup, come in and sign your kids up. And I can remember like counting, like, how many years do I have before I can sign my kids up for kindergarten, But then all of a sudden they're just, you're shipping them off to college. It's true. Those moments, they feel so long, but oh my gosh, when they're 20, you're going to look back on it and think, oh, I should have just not worried. I remember reading an article or something on social media or something that was like, literally don't sweat the small stuff, but it's true. The worry, like, the things that you worry about, you get down the road and you're like, oh gosh, I really didn't, it turned out how it was supposed to.
Make Mementos were all about reading, especially reading aloud. Were there any stories or any kind of routines you had with your kids growing up around reading, or things that you really loved to read together?
Yes. So I am a former teacher and administrator in schools. And so it was really important to me that the kids knew that was a very prominent thing. So we read together every, evening before bed. And then we would always, when they went to bed, you could have 20 or 30 minutes, to when they were young, it was, just to look at a picture book, and we would take turns, Jim and I, laying in bed and, reading a book. Everybody kind of had a favorite book. We loved, Harry the Dirty Dog. Remember that? It gets lost. Harry, isn't that what it is? Isn't that what it's called? I think it's called Harry. Anyways, but they became really good readers. Maisie still loves to sit down and read. They all were, but I also think it helped them, academically, when you can sit down and, have page comprehension and, reading comprehension, for something that isn't necessarily your favorite, topic, but you still can, have great reading comprehension. I'm a 100% advocate of reading and reading early. You have to just sit down and have kids love books, curl up, on a rainy day in a blanket, turn the TV off, put the electronics away, right? And read,
Yeah.
Or in this case, I think reading electronically, even myself, I'm a big reader. But I've gone to, electronic books.
Mhm.
So, they're just easy to pack along with you.
Yeah, one thing with Make Mementos is like the combination of the voice and the written
Yes.
word,
Yeah.
that they're hearing it, the auditory part as well.
Yes.
That's one thing we like. Yeah.
Yes. I do think that's a big thing. I mean, we didn't have a lot of that when even from 20 years ago when our kids were little, or 15 years ago or whatever, when our kids were little, I think that's come a long ways where you can listen to the words that you're reading, and that is certainly a wonderful way to also get kids involved in reading and stories, and you're using their imagination. My
Yeah.
goodness,
Yeah.
picturing what that looks like instead of just seeing what it looks like.
So would you want to let everyone know where we can find more about you, the book, the foundation, and we'll link it
Yes.
all below too.
Yes. The foundation is Ethan's Smile .org. I had to think about that for a minute. Let me say that again. Okay. So it's ethansmile.org is the foundation page. We're also on Instagram, Ethan Smile Foundation on Instagram and Facebook. The book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And also, if you own a bookstore and you want to have it, I'm happy to, around where we live, people have put it in the bookstore. So I don't know, it's been neat. We've received such wonderful feedback on, stories. Teachers especially are like, it is a great teaching tool in the classroom.
Yeah, I can imagine it's such an issue with differences and inclusivity, and it's just
Right.
so timely right now.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So, but yeah, so you can buy it online. And the foundation is online, and also on, Ethan Small Foundation on Instagram and Facebook. So we try to keep it up great. Every Sunday we do a spotlight that features a kid or an adult or a, counselor who has been, touched by Ethan's life in some way. And that has been amazing, an amazing thing, because I think it's also cathartic for the people who write it and who get to be featured.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just became very obvious that that's what we needed to do with all these people who, were touched by this kid and kind of, this terrible kind of tragedy that's happened. So,
Well,
I don't know. It's a good story.
well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing this book with us and the story behind it. We really appreciate it, and we're thrilled to have it on Make Mementos.
Yeah, thank you.